With all eyes on ISIS, China has quietly legalized overseas counter-terror operations, according to details of a controversial new law. Under the counter-terror legislation, China may send personnel outside the border to carry out anti-terror activities. Now, this is very interesting, seeing that the Bundy's son and others are being called terrorists in Burns, Oregon, as they occupy BLM land, knowing that China has a lot of interest in U.S. land, as we see America for sale at a discount rate. Could there be something down the line that could alert China and perhaps send Chinese troops, of course, at the invitation and welcome of the U.S. federal government? If there was some sort of revolution within the U.S., without a doubt, our own government could turn to China to quell the quote-unquote terrorist threat. We can see an increase in joint drills between China and their Navy and the U.S. and the Coast Guard. We can see that recently in Seattle. We can also see the recent Chinese Navy visit to Hawaii. We can look back several years and see Russian special forces training in the state of Colorado to take on quote-unquote terrorists. As the lines are blurred between the blonde-haired, blue-eyed, white Al-Qaeda, and as we see an increase in hysteria and fear of a quote-unquote impending Islamic State attack, is it no surprise that China is following in the footsteps of U.S. imperialism, taking, if you will, a note or a chapter from the Patriot Act itself, using, quote, the threat of terrorism to justify Chinese overseas military operations? In my opinion, this is one of the biggest headlines to come out of the year 2015. The measure applies to the People's Liberation Army and the People's Armed Forces. The link to the full story will be down below.
Well, according to reports, China's new anti-terror law clears the path for global troop deployment. That's right, China on Sunday adopted its first counter-terrorism law that grants overarching powers to security agencies and allows the military to venture overseas on counter-terror operation, and requires technology firms to give sensitive data like encryption keys to the Chinese government, according to the article linked below. Much of the expected lines, 159 legislators of the National People's Congress Standing Committee unanimously adopted the draft law, earlier adopted by the ruling Communist Party, the CPC. The new law makes it legal for the People's Liberation Army to participate in counter-terror missions overseas. The PLA and the country's armed forces may carry out such operations with the approval of the Central Military Commission, according to the new law. Public security and national security authorities may also send personnel overseas for counterterrorism missions with the approval from the government and agreements from countries concerned. So this is really an interesting development coming out of China that is basically allowing them to expand and deploy troops overseas. Everybody is using ISIS and terror as their reason to expand their military reach, to get involved in other nations' wars, and certainly with what's happening in Syria with ISIS. China has made that a focus. They are paying attention there. And after ISIS beheaded some Chinese contractors, they've even said that they're going to go to war against ISIS. We reported on that right here at Next News. So this law actually allows it and makes it official and legal. We've reported that there are actually Chinese Marines and Chinese advisors on the ground in Baghdad, in Syria, working alongside some of these folks. So the U.S. Navy slipped in some side comments, and we reported on that here. We discovered that and gave you the information. So now this basically takes the veil off of that and makes it 100% legit that now China can go ahead and deploy their troops wherever they want, whenever they see terror unfolding.